Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.
This is DJ 745 for Reggae Interviews, sitting beside a artist and producer who is part of a new wave in reggae music. He's blending hip-hop, R&B and rap into classical styles of reggae and dancehall music that Jamaican music's so well known for. The chances are you have heard his signature beats on tracks from artists including Protoje, Jah9, Lila Iké, Koffee and Runkus, to name a few. I want to give a warm welcome to Ayotosh.
Hey man, give thanks. I appreciate that introduction. Yeah.
So how are we doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, you know. I'm here back on the rock doing the thing that I really love, which is talking to new artists, new producers, older artists, the veterans. So try and get a good balance of talking to a good proportion of people who have contributed so much to the music.
Yeah, this is the best time to be here too, Reggae Month. Like, everybody's here.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I realise is that it almost seems like so many events are squashed into Reggae Month. It's like it's a full-time job just attending all the events.
Oh, for sure. Like, even me right now, I have the calendar looking and I'm just like, all right, I need to set aside my whole day to make sure so I can go to that event or that event and link these people, So it's a hassle, but it's fun. It's fun to connect,
For real, most definitely. Now, the reason why we're getting together today is really to try and explore who Ayotosh is, both as a producer and as an artist. But what I feel is that before we can do that, I'd like to learn a little bit of a background about you as a person, where you went to school, where you grew up. I mean, was home Kingston?
Yeah, home was Kingston, born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. Went to Queen's Preparatory School. Went to Wolmer's Boys High School for 3 years. Then I went to Monroe College for another 3 years or 4 years. And I left high school halfway through the sixth form program, which is like grade 13, I think.
Okay.
And just from there, I just dove into music, or dived into music. Yeah.
Okay. What was it about music that kind of gave you that calling?
Music for me has always been like vital in my life. My family is very, they have music backgrounds. My father, Ragnar, as we were talking about, he was a part of Exterminator crew and he was heavily involved in that music out here. My mother, Michelle Geister, she's from Canada and she was a part of Much Music, which was like Canadian MTV basically. So she was involved in like bringing like black music at the time, like rap music, into the mainstream in Canada. So, both of their histories have a big part to play in who I am. And from early, I've been listening to a whole heap of different music and trying to make music of my own, Yeah.
So I guess that with that sort of like really rich family background, both of your parents were involved in music in some form. I guess that it only seems sort of natural for you to pursue music yourself.
Yeah, and it's weird because there was a point in time where music wasn't necessarily the what I saw myself doing either. So I started off like when I was 9 or so. I got a keyboard from my mother and started to make beats on it and stuff like that. And then as you get older and you're going through high school, the focus become more, like you need a traditional career, like something stable you need to make money. And, like I kept doing music in some capacity, but I never saw it as being the thing until towards the end of high school now, where you're really considering your future, university and stuff. And I just realized, hey, like if I'm going to be spending so much time and effort on something, why not do the thing that I really love? And it really dance and music is what I wanted to be doing.
I mean, you mentioned your father's name. He is the great Ragnar Poyser, songwriter, producer and artist for late Philip Fatis Borrell's Exterminator records. My knowledge is that he was actually responsible for writing a lot of the songs that we all sort of nod our heads to in dances, from people like Lucy, Sizzler.
Yeah. Like he his pen game is crazy. Like I'm glad that you even have that knowledge, because a lot of those songs were I wouldn't necessarily say they were ghostwritten, but him just not get the credit that I think he's deserving of in that regards, you know.
Yeah.
But he's a great musician in his own regards, in his own right. Yeah.
And I'm sure that he's very supportive of the works that you're now doing as a younger generation.
Yeah, for sure. You know, one thing that I can say that I'm very grateful for is that my parents, like both of them, were very supportive of even my decision to pursue music as a career, you know, because it's not an easy thing to look at your child, say, you know what, I don't want to go to university, you know, and not necessarily, like, you can't, you know, really qualify for any well-paying jobs, but I'm just going to stay at home for a few years and try work on my craft, especially because things weren't necessarily easy at home neither. Like, it was difficult, but they allowed me to kind of figure myself out, and you know, it's kind of reaping now, you know. Yeah,
I think it's important though to have that support of your family in whatever you do, in terms of whether it's, you know, going down a formal education pathway or something more creative, which is where I think you're at your best.
for sure. You know, like, that's the whole role of families, to support and give love and understanding. And you know, it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't really get to experience that from their families, but boy, it really is a blessing, and that's the purpose of even parents, is to nurture and help guide somebody through them life journey, and not just force them down any path for just money or, you know, material gain. Yeah.
No, that's very important. I definitely do relate to what you're saying there. You mentioned keyboards when you were about 9 years old, so let's understand a little bit. So you were what, 16, 17 years of age, and that's the time when you decided, I don't want to further my education in terms of schooling. How did we get from that point to actually setting up your own production house, Sound Ting?
Boy, the first few years after leaving school were a blur, because I really did not know what I was doing, you know. But Sound Ting, like, even Sound Ting was a concept that me and one of my schoolmates, actually Kyraxx, me and Kyraxx went to Monroe College together, and you know, he came up with the name Sound Ting because we were doing music. It's close to the time where I'm about to leave, and it's like, hey, maybe we could actually do this for real. Maybe we could actually become like superstars and make music and do it for a living. And you know, the idea started there, but there was a lot of things to learn in the coming years, like even learning how to register it as a business and figuring out the tax implications and them things. Like, but it took going through those confusing, blurry years to get to a point where it made sense. And you know, all I did in those years was do music, you know, like just making beats all day, or writing songs, or linking up at studios for sessions with some of the people I was working with at the time. And just, that's all I was doing. That's all my life was kind of about, you know. Yeah.
What instruments do you play then?
I would say I can play a bit of, no, not everything, that kind of excessive, but I can play keyboard to a degree, piano. Okay. I can play guitar, bass, a little bit of drums, my computer, you know.
That's interesting how you see the computer also as an instrument. As a producer, I guess the computer is probably the main instrument that you use.
For sure, you know, 'cause trust me, there are things you can do on a computer where you can't do with instruments, and vice versa, you know. And you know, when I hear other producers say they don't play any instruments, I'm like, come on, like, an instrument is really just a tool used to generate sound, and computer can do that too, you know. So it is an instrument in its own right. Yeah.
I guess it's good that you have the balance of being able to play some of the instruments that you mentioned as well from the more traditional sense, to be able to then create the sound that you have inside you on a computer.
For sure, because I think those instruments are also like the root. Like, it's traditional for a reason, because that's where you start from, you know. And I think for any sort of growth or building upon anything, you need a foundation. So I wouldn't judge anybody for not being able to play an instrument, but if you're doing music, then it would certainly be a great thing to learn an instrument, no? Yeah. So yeah, that's how I look at it, at least. Yeah. So
some of your first productions were things like the Waves EP, the Waves 2 EP. That was what, 2014, 15, 16, around about then?
Oh yeah, those are the first set of things that I did with Kyraxx. I'm kind of shocked that you know about. You did the research, but yeah, you know, that was the beginning of me fooling around in like being like a serious producer, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, those were made when I was still in high school, like still like 10th grade, 11th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are early stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess so that, you know, you're kind of, you know, sort of saying to me that you're kind of surprised that I know about those releases, but there must have been a sense of achievement within yourself at the time to, you know, to go from being someone that's still in high school to actually putting out something musically.
Yeah, there definitely was a sense of pride about it at the time, but you know, as you grow older and you know, like you get a better understanding of what you actually want to be doing with the music, it's like, you know, like sometimes you might end up feeling embarrassed by what you've put out there before, because it's like not a representation of where you're at now. You feel me? So those music, it played its role in where I am now, and I'm not necessarily embarrassed by it neither. But it's just like, it's just crazy. Say, yo, like those things are out there on the internet, and people can track my production credits way back, you know, before I was even taking myself seriously.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we touched a little bit on the fact that you're what I call a new wave of producers here in Jamaica. There's other people, you know, working around you, people like JLL, Zia as well. Do you feel that it's important to maintain some of the traditional sounds that Jamaican music has had in your productions?
For sure, you know, I'm more conscious of it now, but even I think me and those producers that you mentioned and others, like it's in our DNA more or less. Like, you know, a lot of us were raised on Jamaican music and we live here, like it's a part of the culture. Like you take taxi, you hear dancehall a play, or if you go up a dub club, you hear reggae a play, and it's like that just becomes a part of our musical DNA. And even if we're making something else, there are elements of those indigenous music that will forever be a part of anything we do, even if we're not thinking about it. But I'm more conscious of it now because I feel like there is, you know, a responsibility to keep the lineage going, you know, like not to dilute it too much, because you know, with a lot of the Jamaican history and a lot of the music, things get lost or they're not really preserved a certain way. And especially me as a young musician, producer, artist now, I think it's very important to try preserve certain things so that people even after me can look back and trace it and say, oh, him played a bass line that's similar to like for example, Fee-Fi-Fo. You can trace Fee-Fi-Fo back to Luciano Gonzalez. Then you can trace that further back to like Anika Mosey General, you know, and it's like, I think say, like it's at least my personal responsibility to keep the connection, you know. Yeah.
I think that's really important, you know, use the word dilution there. And I think that in recent years, more so than previously, it seems though the media seems to be almost be bashing the music that's coming from Jamaica, saying that it's getting too watered down and it doesn't really have any substance. So I think it's really important that, you know, you still maintain those values of maintaining the traditional, but also giving it a modern day twist.
For sure. And you know, it's such a... It's the media really push so much agendas, you know, like speaking down on the music, because some of it is really just genuine evolution, you know. But what's important when you even mention dilution of the music, or when I mention it rather, is more so the reason why you're doing it. You feel me? It's not necessarily the sound, because like, I mean, I listen to a whole heap of different music and I feel say it's important for things to evolve and change over time. But it's just why I do it. So a lot of people know, you know, music have the power to make people escape their realities, and it's like the truth and fact is that if you do certain types of music, or if you talk about certain things or have certain themes in your thing, it's like that is what sells. And it's like, I'm not bashing anybody for making them living, but then me as somebody who deal really with music first and foremost, it's like it's important to do it from that place. And I think once you're doing it from a place of loving music and appreciating where it's coming from, it's like no matter what it sound like, it's still it's not diluting it, it's still pure, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit like this whole sort of like, dancehall versus Afrobeats argument. I don't understand why it's a versus, why we're having to be like in a fight and put it as versus, because, Afrobeats, I think, has evolved from dancehall. It's just like reggaeton did.
Yeah. Versus, it really shouldn't be a versus. I can understand why people want to compare it, but shouldn't be pitting the music against the music. Like, it's the same root. All of it is the same vibration and sound too, But that's a whole other argument we hear too often, the dancehall versus Afrobeat thing. Yeah.
Let's delve into some of the productions that we're familiar with. So I know that you've done quite a lot of work with Jah9. Some of the songs that come to mind including Highly, Each Man, and Note to Self, which I think was a co-production with Runkus.
Yeah, Note to Self and Highly were both co-productions with Runkus. So me and him produced both of those songs. For Each Man, I did additional production. Like I just did some drum sequencing for that one. So it wasn't fully my production, but yeah, Jah9 were like, those were my first major productions in a sense, like where a label is paying me to make music, like those were the first ones. Special.
How does the creative process work then? So at the time when you are called on board to work on Jah9's album at the time, is it a case of you creating a beat and a sound that Jah9 then listens through to, or is it more of a case of you actually creating a beat to fit something that Jah9 has lyrically?
For those songs, it was more of the latter, where she already had her words and her ideas for how the song should go, and we already, like me and Runkus, already had the instrumentals either fully completed or we had the ideas for them.
Right,
there.
okay.
So it really was like she knew the lyrics, them what she want to say and how she want to deliver it, and we just know how we wanted it to sound, and we come together, had a couple of studio sessions and just merge it together in a way that we all felt comfortable with.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, when I sort of compare those productions that we've spoken about with Jah9 versus, let's say, for example, I think that you were responsible for the beats behind Lila's Solitude. It kind of sounds like a completely different sound.
Yeah, I think, I think those songs are like a year or two apart as well. So it's also like my sound would have evolved a bit by then too, But definitely the fact that the Jah9 songs were a co-production with Runkus as well, it has his musical imprint in it. Yeah, so Solitude was actually a co-production between myself, Zaya and JLL as well, It really started off with me and Zaya, like we did most of it, and JLL did some additional stuff, but even that is like a shared production.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I really sort of sticks out in my mind is that when that EP came out, The Experience, this was around the time when the world was hit by COVID, and it just seemed as though there were so many people that really sort of like gravitated towards Solitude, because it was something that we hadn't really heard Lila on before.
Yeah, like that song is kind of the outlier on the project as well, because it's a second track. If you think about it, like most people when they're putting together their projects, they want the second track to be like a banger, just hit right away. And Solitude is so relaxed, so stripped back, so laid back, and almost acoustic,
Right.
And I think that took people by surprise, and it also gave people something that they never knew that they needed. I would say the same thing for even Jah9 Note to Self, because it's a similar kind of message as well, which is like, not, I wouldn't say isolation, but solitude work as well.
True.
And just kind of meditation and just recentering and refocusing on what is important for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel as though your productions don't necessarily fit the mold of the artist's previous work. So, like we said about Lila's the Solitude, compared to some of her other previous works before that, Biggest Fan and Second Chance, it was kind of like you were kind of giving a completely new sound to the artist.
Yeah, and I give thanks for the artists who trust me as well, because I've definitely been in studio sessions where people want me to make something that they've done already, like, yo, we want to do something like this or something like this, and it's like, I don't really love that, I want to make something fresh, and it's it's a beautiful thing when there's mutual trust. There's trust from the artist that me as a producer will, you know, try to achieve something fresh but also make it palatable. And it's also a mutual trust that I give the artist that they will like they can actually deliver something on it, you know, or give the rhythm it's something where it deserves, if that makes sense. So, you know, I think just I think I've been kind of lucky in a sense to for most of my work to have been done with people who are open to me just doing something different. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Tell me which artist up to date gives you the biggest fight in terms of you're sharing a beat with them and you've got a vision for it and they're just knocking it. They're saying, no, this can't work. This can't work.
At this stage, nobody, you know, you know, like it really would have been earlier in my career before I had any credits, you know, because, you know, I'm still relatively young, like probably when I was like 18 or so, like people would have been, I'm not going to name nobody though, but you know, people would have been like, yo, we want to make something like this, like we want to kind of copy the progression of this and use the same drum pattern. It's just like, no, I don't do that. Like nothing that I have put out is a situation like that.
It's not a repeat.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, you know, your working preferences, do you like to actually work with the artist in the studio when you're creating a beat, or do you like to do it in your own solitude?
The latter, for sure. Like most of the productions that I have out, it's a case where I make the complete instrumental and then just send it off. And then what will happen is, like, maybe I will go in session with the artist and then I can add a few more things, but I like to have the idea to present before, you know, because at the end of the day, to, like, you know, creating a song is a separate process from creating a beat or a rhythm, you know, and it's like it requires a lot of patience to build a rhythm, especially when you have a vision of what you want to achieve, and sometimes it's understandable that the artist may not have that patience, you know, like I'm messing around with songs and going through individual samples and saying, oh, this snare, maybe I should use another snare, and it's like, you know, the artist just kind of want to jump on the rhythm, you know, so it's more so me building the rhythm them, and then we fine tune things when we agree on the direction. Yeah.
Okay, another question for you. Where does the sun come from?
Yeah, Daddy, where does the sun come from? Yeah, here comes the morning. You want a real answer, is it?
I mean, you did a lot of work on Protoje's most recent Grammy-nominated album, Third Time's the Charm.
Right.
What's it like working with Proto in the studio?
Working with Proto is always a good experience. You know, like, one thing I'll always give thanks for is that, you know, Protoje is just like a fair person. You know, like he just respects my process. Like, he's not gonna be overbearing, and he's not gonna be like too pushy. Like he really just gets my sound and I get his sound, you know, and I think we have a great relationship, and I think that we just make a lot of great music together, and you know, it's really just a joy to be able to make music with somebody like that. Yeah.
And we talked about Runkus earlier. Now, you also had a contribution to his LP with Toddler T, Outside, as well.
Yeah, that was a smaller contribution, but you know, that song Pretty Suit with Kyraxx was actually a whole different production. That song is years old. That song is maybe like 5 years old.
Wow.
You know, 5 might be exaggerated, maybe 4.
Cool.
You know, and the original version of the song was a production by me and Teflon, like Teflon Zinc Fence. And you know, song never went out the way it was at the time, and they revisited it. Toddler T did, you know, he renewed the production, and you know, my credit is more so just an indication of what I had done previously. You know, so but I still like how it came out, and yeah, like I think it's a great project too.
And then we've got to talk about the West Indies, the project with Koffee.
For sure. That's the crown jewel in my production catalog right now. What can I say about that song, man? That song kind of changed my life and changed the trajectory of my career at that point to now. I really love that song. I made that beat in 2019. Somebody, one of our mutuals, Stammer, I think Stammer had reached out to me, saying that Koffee did want me to send her a song from Kyraxx, because apparently Koffee has been listening to the stuff like those Wave EPs from time when she was still in school, so shortly after that somebody from her team had reached out to us and said, hey, Koffee's gonna be here, because I think it was 2020 with the lockdown, and it's like she's gonna be in the country, let us link up. And the beat for West Indies was like the second or third beat that I played for her, and she just started vibing right away and just start writing. That was an amazing process too, because she's very skilled, especially for like her age. Like she's very, very skilled, very good songwriter, and it was a good vibe creating that song as well.
Whilst all these productions have been going on, at the same time you yourself are also an recording artist in your own right. I think that some of the earliest works that you did were with Royal Blue, a combination called NTN. Where did that transition come from in terms of, I know that you said to me earlier in our interview that you were at high school and you kind of felt like music was like the path that you wanted to trod. Was it always within your mindset that I actually want to be a recording artist in my own right as well?
I don't think I really knew at the time what being an artist meant. Like I got that keyboard and started to like make compositions and stuff. I knew that I liked writing stuff, like writing songs, or I liked singing stuff, but like everything that comes with being an artist in terms of putting yourself out there and maybe even performing, like those things used to kind of scare me a bit, because I was like, I didn't really like putting myself out there, so I didn't really see that as a full part of my journey until relatively, well, not recently, but around the time that I put out that song, because that song is really an abbreviation, it's just nothing. So it's NTN, it stands for nothing, and it's like, even that song is just coming from a place of, like I just want to show, say I can do this.
Right.
Like I can be a lyrical DJ, just like enough of the DJs who inspire me at the time, and at this stage now, it's like I'm embracing that side of my artistry more, of my music more, because I think I just have some nice music, and I just would love to perform it and go out there and
share it. Yeah. And I think other songs that come to mind, including Reasons, and then I think we reached out around the time when I think that you had Fee Fi Fo, and I think that it was the Natural High remix that was probably the first song that I heard from Iotosh as the artist.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Reasons, like I was reluctant to even put that song out because it's one of the more vulnerable songs that I've released, and it's like Jamie Radigan from Create Classics had sent me that rhythm from UK, and I just had that song and I sent it and I said, hey, this is what I have, and he's like, yo, this is dope, we should put it out. And I was like, I don't know about that, talking about struggle and stuff like that, like, I was just very self-conscious. And then Jamie sent it to David Radigan, and David Radigan bust it on BBC and was saying, yo, I love this song, this new artist called Ayotosh. And I'm just like, that song here where me I hug up and afraid for put out, I get played on BBC, and like what are the odds, like what am I really doing, and sure. I think even that situation made me realize I was in my head too much about just putting my music and my truth out there, and from then, like, I've just been more comfortable just being an artist and putting myself out there. Yeah.
Where do you feel most at ease within yourself musically? Is it more productions or as an artist?
I would say at productions, but it's really what I've been doing for the majority of my career, like actively, that is. So it's almost second nature, like even getting up in the mornings and figuring out what am I going to do today is like, okay, I'm going to build a rhythm, like that is second nature. But also now, like, I feel more comfortable, like even just taking up my guitar and not making music to build a rhythm, but making music and then maybe singing a melody, and then, you know, maybe when I like have my phone and I record a progression, maybe I'll write something, and, you know, I feel like I'm transitioning more to that side of things. Yeah.
And then there was also another song that was released in 2022, Skillful, with the Green Lion Crew, another big song.
Yeah, as we were saying, you know, like, it's still crazy to me that album cut. I thought it was just gonna be an album cut is like getting a lot of traction, and even like when I check the streaming numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, you know, I check the numbers and realize it out streaming some of the singles, and I'm like, no man, something go on, man. I don't know what go on, but people seem to really enjoy that song. But it's also just like that song is just talking a reality, and I realize as an artist, once you talk real things and reality, is like it I go connect with people, because that's what they're experiencing too. You're not really alone in what you feel, you know.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I feel as though we are still seeing the very early stages of Ayotosh as an artist, and I feel as though there's so much more to come. What are the plans going forwards now for the rest of this year?
I want to release singles more consistently, and that's really the aim for this year. Like, I have projects that have been sitting on my computer, and I'm always trying to refine them, but the most solid plan right now is I have a couple more singles coming out this year. I'm doing a mixtape with Max Glazer at the moment, under Federation Sound, so, you know, that by summertime that should be a thing. And I have an EP that I'm working on as well, that hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, based on how the momentum is, I can put that out there and, you know, have like my first body of work, because that's something that I really would love to do, like put out a body of work, you know.
Well, do you know what? I think we're really excited to look out for some of these future releases, both from yourself as an artist and, of course, as a producer as well. Because I think the thing with being a producer is that a lot of people that are watching today are probably sort of thinking, oh, I recognise that song, I heard that song, but you don't always know who the team are behind it.
Yeah, and that's just a part of the game too, you know. It's just behind the scenes work, like, just... It's like when you're in the studio, like, you're just trying to make the best product. You're not necessarily trying to be famous, you know. And, you know, like, that was the trade-off about being an artist that I was never really sure about earlier in my career, which is just like putting yourself out there or being recognizable, you know. But, you know, once you just own up your truth and know, so you're just talented and you just do music, I just saw, like, you just do it, you know. So that's the stage where I'm at right now, and, you know, people are recognizing me more when I go out. And, you know, I think even as a producer, like the artist thing aside, I think people are recognizing me as a producer too, just based on how I've been able to, you know, try put together branding for myself as well. So I'm just owning up my reality, which is that I am a musician, and I do music, all sorts of music, and I build rhythm and sing song, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a bit like what Kabaka said recently at the Grammys. We're just some kids from Jamaica, right?
Yeah, just some kids from Jamaica who do music, you know? Yeah.
Well, look, I really give thanks for your time today to sit down and learn a little bit about you, both as a person and musically as well. A message to people out there that may be watching, that are thinking, do you know what? This is something that I want to pursue. What advice would you give to that person?
I would say, trust yourself, you know. Trusting yourself, it sounds so cliche, but it's like it will get you to where you want to be sooner than if you doubt yourself all the time. Like, be realistic and make your plans, and, you know, don't throw yourself into the deep end if you can't swim. But at the same time, it's like you're not going to know the reality until you do something, and don't let the fear hold you back from doing what you really want to do. Yeah, I think that work.
Wise words. Iotosh, for myself, give thanks for your time today. Enough respect.
Yeah, man, give thanks every time. Give thanks. Bless.
Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.